Welcome everyone, I'm Maury Weinstein, President and Co-Founder of Source. Today on a topic which is near and dear to our heart. We use a lot of metrics in proactively managing our IT operations. We do talk about this partly because educated clients produce the best IT outcomes, makes our job easier, produces better outcomes, and that's a reason alone to discuss this topic. I have left my home phone number and my office number in front of you on the screen. If you ever find yourself moving backwards or have something I should hear about, don't hesitate to give me a call or reach me via email, which is on your screen also. I thought we'd go commercial for about 20 seconds and then we'll get right into the meat of our presentation. People come to us, to Source, to help improve their IT operations and audiovisual operations, especially the maturity of both. We use our learning center to train large numbers of people, hopefully to lower your help desk costs and for increased productivity. We also have carefully set up classrooms in Hunt Valley and in a Columbia location. We train many hundreds of people a month in a variety of topics. The top ones at the moment are AI and Power BI. Presentation systems is where we keep folks that are dedicated to creating audiovisual rooms, conference rooms, classrooms, huddle rooms, Teams rooms. All of that is done within our 10, 11, 12 person department that just thinks about presentation systems. Consulting is where we keep our heavy hitters. These folks are doing our security assessments, all of our cloud migrations. They are at 29 years of tenure on average between them with Source. Cloud services is code word for our data center. We've been running a data center in our Hunt Valley headquarters since 1995, so we took our cloud blinders off many years ago. Today, most of our work, of course, is being done at Azure and AWS. Service and support can be done two different directions. One is reactively, which is we do a little of, hard to do well, and proactively, which is where managed IT services comes in. That's how we learned a lot of what we'll be talking about today. If we maintain efficiently enough, there may be enough money left over in the budget to refresh your environment, and that's where our configuration center and our warehouse comes in, both within our Hunt Valley headquarters. On behalf of the 70 of us at Source, we say welcome today. And also, if you haven't joined us in our computer museum, it is a large computer museum. We believe it's the second largest on the East Coast, and I think you'll enjoy it very much. We have a dedicated force that maintains our museum, and we have over 1,000 pieces open and on display. I just looked outside my door. There's several classes of kids here enjoying the museum. We hope you're enjoying your pizza. If you haven't received your pizza, which tends to be a fairly common issue, don't hesitate to reach Julie at jdellinger@syssource.com. Thanks, Julie, for putting together today's event. During the webinar, you'll be in presentation mode until the end. And reminder to view the webinar, there'll be plenty of graphs and data being displayed today in full screen mode. Don't hesitate to use chat, or you can use questions if you'd like, the question box, to submit written questions. And the evaluation, there'll be one just after the webinar finish. We appreciate your comments very much. The management event today is really part of a much longer list of management events. So today's key metrics we talked about, but don't hesitate to join us for our security lessons from Verizon's analysis of 31,000 security incidents, 20 questions I'd ask when choosing a managed service provider, and so on. Hopefully you'll find something here that helps mature your operation. Some people, upon viewing our sessions, find that there's significant people, process, and tools to getting them implemented. And you may be missing one of them. There's some organizations that have a difficult people problem, others have difficult process problems, others have difficult tool issues that don't have the tools they need, software tools in particular. And that's where we come in. So don't hesitate to use our management event series to evaluate your people, process, and tools. Just keep an eye on your email screen or the main page at syssource.com for invitations. Our agenda today is to talk about management and metrics, is to talk about metrics and ops and best practices, financial metrics, IT maturity metrics, learning from others' metrics, and of course the all-important topic of who's going to perform all this work, who's going to do this metric, these measurements. Let's get right into the presentation and talk about why measure proactively. why organizations aren't proactive is a worthwhile discussion. We talk about it here internally, but people really should be. And there's really 4 reasons we've identified why people don't measure proactively. Very high bar is to measure ahead of the demand for the metric. Very high bar. One is organizations haven't experienced negative outcomes. They don't understand what could happen. And it's our job to inform management, discuss, negotiate with them, whatever verb you'd like to use, to make sure they understand that not everything ends up positive. And we need to understand what measurements are necessary to keep us within range of best practices, keep us safe. Others don't know the financial impact of a reactive approach. Of course, they learn after a significant security event, but beforehand is really what we need to help others understand. False sense of security. I have had people tell me that they believe that if a security incident occurred, there will be a good outcome. It's a very positive point of view, which we support, but I'm not sure it's realistic. And others doubt the information, which is really an important part of today's discussion. Seems kind of simple, but measuring before you need it in order to fine-tune the measurement and to involve others and to have others bought into the measurement and to perfect the measurement before you need the data is a very high level of metrics. So I would ask you to underscore that, is making sure that you have the information, that you've graphed it, or you've got a dashboard around it, or a light or something around it before you need it. Very high level. Talking about your management style, metrics can fuel your management style. What we'd like to see and what we'd like you to think about is managing using lights. These could be virtual lights. They don't have to be real lights. But managing using lights means that if you have a metric that is green, it's time to go home or take a long lunch. If you have a yellow, we've got to look toward it. If you have a red light on some area of your operations, you've got to run toward it. It's a very interesting way of managing your operations, is putting lights around it, a dashboard or a report or whatever could suffice as a light. But think of your day as running toward red lights, putting them to bed, keeping an eye on the yellow ones so they don't turn red. And of course, the green ones are worth some accolades to the staff for. So what are some of the criteria for managing with metrics, that is? One is we want to use metrics as a target or a range. So when we have specific numbers, like customer sat must be 4.6, or you must process 4.6 tickets per hour, whatever. I'm just blowing some numbers by you. Those are specific numbers, and they often lead us astray. But for you to have a target range of X to Y tickets per hour, customer sat, feels way more appropriate. It's when we're fixed to a fixed number that bad things can happen to management or to the staff or both. Number 2, you may have new folks, especially if you have high turnover operations. Many of our clients have experienced significant turnover. If you have new folks, don't penalize them for missing targets during onboarding or during their orientation or during the first couple months. Reward people and assess people based on the progress they're making toward the metric. The number of new folks that hit the metrics day one is a pretty small number. It could happen, but it's a pretty small number, and we have to incorporate that in our management work. Number 3, you're in charge of stealing strokes from those who do hit the targets to help those who don't. That transfer of strokes from one set of your staff to another, very important part of your work. So you have to be in a position to understand who's stroking properly and what those strokes are, and then transfer those to others that may not understand those strokes as well or haven't thought about them. Number 4, measure only what the staff can control. I suspect when you were a staff member, or maybe you are now, that you've been assigned certain metrics that may be out of your control or are under control of 4 or 5 other people in addition to you. Very dissatisfying when that happens. So measure only what the staff member can control. What's an example of that? If you have a service shop or build shop and you expect the desktop surfaces to be clean in between builds or service repairs, but there's 5 other people sharing the same shop for unknown reasons, that could be a real dissatisfier if you're being measured based on a clean surface in between builds or service repairs. That's just one example. Measure only what matters, keeping people focused on a small number of measurements, especially ones that matter, very important. When you expand metrics to incorporate a large number of areas, a large number of metrics, people who often aren't experienced with metrics, well, their mind can get unfocused. So having a small number of metrics that matter, very important. Next one, measure early to benchmark what's possible. This relates to a thought we had earlier in today's presentation, where you want to measure ahead of the demand, because lots of things happen with metrics, including the need to refine them, the need to convince others that they're credible, the need to perfect how the metric is calculated, the need to automate the metric. All that is better off when you measure early, because you don't know what's possible. So if you don't have 2, 3, 4 years of data on that metric, you have no idea what's possible. And all of a sudden you need the data and you don't know what's possible. That's a very difficult area. It's a pretty low bar to measure only when something's on fire and you don't know what's possible. So for example, we know what our productivity in our warehouse is because we've measured over a period of many years. So if we have a question mark as to whether we need to be more efficient, spend more salary, less salary, we know the answer to that question because we have many years worth of data. That's just one example. Measure human resources as well as operations. We're going to see some evidence of that here today. It's not just operations that we're measuring, it's the people behind it. Very important to tie all your metrics to management's goals. If management's goals are in your left hand and your metrics are in your right hand and they don't overlap, that's a problem. Be careful of that one. Watch for unintended consequences. So depending on what you measure, you're going to get some great results. Often when managers are clear, if you have the right staff member in the right position, the chances of your staff member not achieving the clear goals is pretty small if you have the right person in the right position. So knowing that's pretty small, we have a lot of power as managers. We have to watch for unintended consequences where metrics lead us astray. And last one, subjective is good. While it sounds like what Maury's talking about is all objective stuff based on numbers, being subjective as to what strokes are needed, what the right strokes are, is very important. So subjective is good. This is not an objective-only conversation. Some of you have noted in your registration that you'd like to learn about how to measure personnel utilization, efficiency, workload. Each of you use different words for that. So this is the way we do it. It's right in front of you on the screen. This is managing with metrics from an HR point of view, using lights in addition to numbers, right? The number of people who are going to remember 95.4 as they walk around your offices is going to be small, but they'll remember what range that is. In this case, it's green range. So for you to use lights in addition to the numbers, very important. It's also very simple to do. This happens to the actual communication, which we do either weekly or every other week. I've forgotten exactly. We've done it for many years. This is for our consulting forces. These are our highest level personnel. This person is in the green range, 93% or above. What this particular metric measures, which is as important as the presentation of it, both of them important, the measurement here is all uses for their time. Proposal writing, that's counted. Training themselves in Azure or whatever, that counts. Putting on seminars like this one and preparing for them, that counts. Billing customers for their time, that of course counts. So all the above count. So if you've got good uses for your time and you're talking to your people about it, you've got to make sure that they're being rewarded and measured based on all those uses, not just a subset of them. So we don't just count what percentage they bill to clients, because that often is not under their control. We count all the uses of their time. Very important to getting buy-in. Moving on to next slide, which is choosing metrics wisely. There are some metrics that will oppose your culture, that will be detrimental, otherwise known as disastrous. We got to stay away from those. Remember unintended consequences? These, the ones I've crossed out, generally produce some unintended consequences. Tickets closed. Many people measure based on that, not here at System Source. Measuring based on that usually means people take the easiest tickets. The toughest tickets don't get taken, or somehow they get reassigned or inappropriately escalated. So all of these are really inappropriate, we think, metrics, but are often done. Resolution time is another one where if you measure based on resolution time, you're going to get some fast resolutions, but you may not be proud of that. But there are areas that we can measure, and that is customer sat, response time, whether people put notes in tickets, job satisfaction. Remember, we talked about measuring human resources as well as operations. That's one example of that. So there's plenty of metrics, but you got to watch the ones that destroy your operation. Metrics can build your operation, but they can destroy it as well. We got to stay clear of those. So let's work backwards toward choosing metrics. Working backwards often starts with the company's or the organization's goals, of which we have listed 4 or 5 of them here that we use in our managed services operations. 1 is decreasing downtime, 2, risk reduction, 3, lower personnel costs through higher productivity. Very difficult to evidence that one. And I'll be making some claims here today in today's presentation, but there'll be a data point behind each one of these in a moment. Solving problems quickly, motivating employees. All of those are worthwhile organizational goals and can be supported by metrics. So let's take a look at them. So measuring operations, we talked about downtime and how reducing downtime is important. So we have discussions with our customers on metrics known as recovery time objectives, otherwise known as RTOs, and recovery point objectives, otherwise known as RPOs. RTOs is how long do we have, or do you have, to restore your operations, your IT operations. And recovery point objectives, RPOs, is to what point is the restoration. You may restore your payroll systems faster than you restore your 401k systems because they're more important, they're more timely. We also keep one eye on the metric known as downtime costs, $100 per person per day, using some very basic assumptions. At a 50% productivity loss, which means they still have email, but they don't have network access, or vice versa. So that adds up pretty quickly, especially at the organizational size of some of the participants in today's session. So that's one metric in front of you. RPOs and RTOs are very healthy discussions. I was sitting with a client, and I thought there was a bit of an elephant in the room. So I asked him, how long do I have to put your systems back together again if they all fall apart? He said 4. I figured he meant 4 months. He hadn't virtualized. He hadn't done a lot of the basic work, which of course we then helped him with. And over a period of years, he was ready for 4 hour, which is what he meant, RPOs and RTOs. These are important discussions. Often, by the way, the configurations and the choice of solutions is completely dependent on these metrics. Another important one, which often doesn't get the highlight that it should, and that is matching the supply of people with the demand for people. This is largely a help desk fixation in front of you. So you've got to have the right number of people at the right time to satisfy your help desk demand. And the question is, how do you do that? Well, one thing you can do is to schedule people based on demand and to plot your demand just like you're seeing in front of you. So here's Monday, here's Tuesday, here's Friday, and here's time of day. You can see, for example, that there's some interesting thoughts in here. Here's around 3:30, some of our triple shift employers, some of our customers are triple shift employers, come in, they switch shifts, and well, there's need for support. So you can see all that in front of you, and you wouldn't know that, perhaps otherwise intuitively, until you plot the demand. So I would encourage you to do that, is to take a look at your ticket creation time versus time of day versus day of the week, and figure out when do I need to schedule people. So, and the other thing you do with this is to make sure you don't have any barriers to productivity during the peak times. I was sitting next to somebody in a benchmarking conference years ago, and my good idea, which was part of the agenda for the benchmarking conference, is exactly what I talked about in front of you. The guy next to me said, well, he has meetings at 8 o'clock every morning to control his people to take the right tickets and to triage and whatever. Well, that didn't make any sense at all, because peak time every morning is around 8 or 9 o'clock. So to have a meeting or have other demands for people's times during that time would be unfortunate based on the data. I hope that's helpful to you. In terms of tracking metrics, having a dashboard of some sort, let's take a look at our dashboard. This is one of the dashboards we've used in the past. Let me move it over to the shared screen and make it bigger. In front of you is a sample dashboard. All the data is sample. It's all been changed to protect the innocent. And it helps us understand, did the tickets get start on time? That's what the SLA number is in front of you. The action number are the ticket notes up to date based on our criteria. And there's all kinds of other thoughts here in front of you too that are all color-coded. So to have something like this that brings to management's attention all the tickets that may not have made SLA properly, may not have started fast enough, may not be getting attention, is very important. So to have a dashboard that brings this to your attention, really important part of today's discussion. Who has capacity? That's important, question mark, and that dashboard you saw a moment ago has the ability to help people with that. It actually tells the viewer how many tickets are open versus other statuses. So the dispatcher team knows who needs tickets and who doesn't. Are SLAs being met? All of that is covered in the dashboard that you just saw. Response times also. So all that dashboard covers all that ground, and I ask you to consider either making one or using perhaps one that's built into your systems. That goes back to the people process tools we talked about. That's one of the tools that if you don't have, it becomes very hard to deliver top bar and efficient IT, and some customers come to us for that reason. They don't have the tools in place. Other tools are reporting tools like the ones you see in front of you. On top is a patch score. We've encountered large numbers of people who don't know their patch score, which is unfortunate, partly because it's a very boring area of the business, right? Patching is not a high interest area for most people, but it's very important to keep the hackers at bay. The fact that many people don't report on it is evidenced by the fact that we measure our inbound clients to our managed services operations. We measure them as they come into our services, often from internal IT or from other managed service providers. The average scores are in the 30s for patch. Now, there's lots of ways to measure patch. We can talk endlessly about that. We've picked one to show you in front of you. These are actual reports. So we run our customers in the mid-90s, but the average onboarded are in the 30s. So you start to see why the hackers have the upper hand, but shouldn't. Now, we do go to 100% from time to time. We take some great pride in doing that. Of course, you can only go to 100% for a few days until Microsoft drops another load of patches on you. The second measurement that I'd ask you to consider very strongly today is measuring your backup results. So at System Source, each of our managed clients are viewed, their backups are viewed every morning before we open, so we don't conflict with our peak hours, probably when you and I are sleeping. And they're earned either S for success, E for error, or F for failure. Every job gets a look. So we have a spreadsheet with hundreds of rows. Each day, each job gets a look to make sure that it's completed successfully. If you don't do that, the rule of thumb in the IT business, which you probably know already, is your backups are not running. So I was sitting with somebody, we were having fun at one of our events at Oriole Park. And the pretzels are really good there. I love the pretzels Oreo Park. And we were munching down on them, and he said, he's got a bad managed service provider. And I said, all right, fine, whatever. Why don't you at least make sure that the managed service provider is providing you a spreadsheet of your backup results? 2 weeks later, he writes in, well, he didn't do it, and the managed service provider wasn't able to evidence it, and they've lost multiple months from their archives. This is a major engineering firm located here in the region. So he didn't do the work he needed to, and they weren't doing the work either. So the result was not good. Earlier, I talked about higher productivity being a metric, higher staff productivity. So we went to our conference table here in System Source when we used to use our 18-foot conference table, and we asked ourselves the question, are we having any impact on our clients' productivity at all? How do we know whether we should go home at the end of the day? So we created the metric, and the metric is tickets per workstation per business day. And our job is to make this line go down. The sick part of it is actually working. That line is down by about a third, tickets per workstation per business day, over the 107-month period since January 16 that you see in front of you. You can actually figure out what that's worth to your organization, assuming the average wage is $30 per person per hour, 1 hour of downtime per request. Just based on those numbers alone, it's reducing 30% of tickets is about $6,000 a year per 100 staff members. So you can actually figure out based on raw salary, no funny business with the numbers. This, by the way, includes all the proactive activity that we do. We have a whole series of proactive activities, actually dozens of activities over the year. And each one, of course, involves some documentation, some support requests, some customer communications, and all those are in here. We think that if we're driving this number down, or you're driving this down in your own organizations, people are more productive because they're spending less time in IT, as evidenced by less tickets per workstation per business day. So we've taken something, personnel productivity, that's very hard to measure, and we think we have a grasp on it, at least as it relates to spending time in IT. Now, of course, if we can't get the line going down, and each of our clients has a graph of their own that we prepare for them, this is one that shows across all of our managed clients. So each client has his or her own graph, and if we can't get that going down, and there are a few clients who have some troubles in their environments where we can't drive that number downward, meaning we can't create productivity among their staff and have their staff spend less time in IT, then we've got to understand the ticket causes. It's kind of interesting, by the way, I do sit in these meetings frequently, these quarterly business reviews with our managed clients, and it is kind of interesting that each of our clients has a different problem that ails it. Some have heavy turnover, others have ancient equipment. It is kind of interesting that every client is a different environment. That's why we have to understand ticket causes by number of tickets. That's part of our responsibility for our managed clients. Moving on to security, this is a metric, this is our internal data of fraudulent 365 logins. You don't want to have hackers in your email systems, you know that. You know it's not easy to get them out of your systems. It's a 15-step process to do so. So we really have to make sure that the hackers don't have access, and worse, persistent access to our email. Our email contains a lot of important information, including how to get bills paid in your organization, including your client lists, and so on. So we used to see upwards of 10 fraudulent logins. This is the fourth quarter of 2021. And now it's getting into the 0 area. Now, we can't take credit for this all by ourselves. Our clients are doing a lot of great things, including buying better Microsoft licensing, including doing better on their phishing and training campaigns, some of them. But we did see 9 months. There's 9 months here with 0 that we had none. Unfortunately, somebody just gave up their credentials here in Q1 2025, so we're not going to have a 0 for that quarter. We do have clients that are still giving up their credentials. That's unfortunate. But you can see the shape of this curve, this internal data, internal to us, it tells us that progress is being made. Another reason to measure today's topic. Measuring best practices. Best practices means that we can measure and benchmark with other parties to accept ideas that work from them and to give them ideas that work. So one of the metrics that separates us and separates great IT organizations, really organizations in general, is measuring customer satisfaction successfully. Successfully means large numbers of responses. This is not 1 or 2 or 3 per month, people responding. These are hundreds. Our numbers are in front of you in case you want to benchmark against them. We are running at a 99% top box. A top box, all of you know, means counting only the fives on a 0 to 5 scale. That's top box scoring. And we can talk about sometime, unfortunately it runs a little long for today's presentation, why top box scoring is way more important than average scoring. Very important discussion. If you jot down on your webinar evaluation, I'd be happy to get a hold of you and we can talk about why. And we also send a message to ourselves and our clients that we live and die based on our customer sat measurements, right? Today's topic, because we publish them in real time, unedited, which is what the word cloud is in front of you. You actually see that on the front of our webpage, syssource.com, and if you are in our lobby, we have the identical measurement in our lobby. Now we can see this is a static one. It looks like it was taken during Christmas because I see Christmas in the word cloud, but it tells us that we live, it tells our customers and our staff that we live and die based on customer sat. It sends the right management message supporting customer satisfaction. Now there's all kinds of fun responses. I hope our end users that we service are as creative in your environment as they are responding to our survey. This person says, it's like my computer lost 50 pounds in minutes. This person says, in a zombie apocalypse, he'll be my go-to guy. There's all kinds of fun comments that our customers make. Here's one that says, I could frustrate the Pope with my ignorance. In any case, there's all kinds of fun comments. I have pages and pages of these fun comments. I use them just as a notepad for presentations and to talk to the staff about. So understanding what correlates with overall satisfaction is very important. For example, in our Learning Center, this is our internal data for our Learning Center. Is it the manner in which instructors encourage participation? Is that most tied to customer satisfaction? Should I be working on that? Or should I be working on whether the course objectives are being explained clearly? Or should I be working on technical setup in our webinars and our classes? Or should I be working on the pace of the course? How do we know what we should be working on? Well, there's some correlation statistics. If some of you remember your high school and college statistics courses, there's some correlation coefficients which are being shown right in front of you. It turns out it's the clarity of the instructor's presentation, which is right here on this area right here in the upper left-hand corner, that's most correlated with overall satisfaction in our Learning Center. It's very important for us to know that, and it's very important for you to know what's correlated with your help desk or whatever organization you're working within. This particular correlation coefficient, for those that remember your correlation coefficients from high school or college, is 0.89. That's a pretty strong correlation. So the clarity of the instructor's presentation and knowledge of the topic is more heavily correlated. And we know that because we've run the data, and that's really part of today's topic. Now we've talked about operations plenty, so let's get on to organizational culture metrics. This is where we cross over into some HR areas, and we talk to our customers about the fact that we have sharp technical minds, but that's just interesting sales discussion. But we have a metric that measures that. And you can have the same metrics. It doesn't cost very much money. And again, if you'd like to talk about this, we actually have a deck that just talks about testing incoming employees. So we know the Wonderlic or Teslify score for each of our employees, and therefore we can invest in them. We can support them. We can support their needs because they have what's known as high adult ability to learn, which is what this test measures. Tenure measurements are totally valid, right? We're off IT operations now into HR. So for you to measure tenure or industry experience, absolutely appropriate. So we have, for example, some long experience in our help desk area, 18 years on average. But these measurements help us maintain that and reward based on it. You can do the same metrics. They're fairly easy to do. And again, any of these metrics, if you'd like to benchmark with us, I'm open to benchmarking with you personally. One of the things that we can't forget is the lowly checklist. In this case, displaying security status needed to partner for new business, investors, or donors, or M&A. Many customers are asking questions, especially data-sensitive customers, security-sensitive customers, large customers, are asking the question, how secure is my data when I send it to you? Are we going to have any problems based on data security? And they ask a bunch of questions. We try to get ahead of that by giving our managed clients this particular spreadsheet. And this spreadsheet asks important questions like, are there any workstations or servers that are being placed in my environment? Those are often ones that patching is questionable, and we should know about those. That's just one question right here, number 5. So for you to present this to your new clients or donors or whatever, or be ready to answer them when they come across with their own spreadsheet, very important. Another metric. Financial metrics. We don't sell managed services based on saving money, although sometimes it does. Just depends on the organization. But it is important for you to know whether money savings is possible and over what year basis. So we have a spreadsheet that just calculates that. This particular one is a different spreadsheet that understands, should I send my mail out to the cloud? We've used this one over the years. It's probably not particularly useful anymore. All of our clients, nearly all of our clients, are in the cloud at this point. But understanding the financial metrics around these changes is important for us to get the right return on investment. Measuring IT maturity can be done. Gartner, which you know is the grandfather of research for the IT industry, has 6 levels of IT maturity. Levels 1 through 3 are right in front of you. Survival mode, which is not a pretty area, is level 1. That's where there's very little focus on IT infrastructure and operations, pretty chaotic area. Hopefully all of us have survived that area and moved on to awareness or committed, where you've got project management increasing satisfaction, or being proactive, number 4, or service aligned or business partnership, where IT is in a partnership with the organization. Those are the levels that Gartner has indicated for IT maturity, that is operational maturity. So you can put that in a chart and you can circle where you are, and equally as important, where you want to be. So if your people side of IT is in this area here, but you want to take it over here, at least you know the starting point and the ending point, and you have some way of measuring that. So that's how you use the IT maturity model, is figuring out where you are today. In this case, process tools might be ad hoc, but we're at least aware that processes are necessary. Over to repeatable and automatable service delivery. So while it seems simple on the screen to circle them, obviously a lot of hard work going on to move from left to right. Notice that nothing I said today means that you have to be in the right-hand column. Moving to the right-hand column can be expensive, can be diversionary if your organization has other goals besides maturing IT. But we can help people move to the right if you want to. That's the people, process, and tools that we've talked about throughout today's presentation. It can be very expensive to move all the way to the right, and it may not be the right thing for your organization. That's why you have to figure out where your organization is going from an IT maturity point of view and circle that. Another area in metrics is learning from others' metrics. For example, the Verizon report, some of you have attended my Verizon report presentations. It comes out in the summertime. It is a 100-page report that I summarize for our managed clients and other people too, and present each year, usually in the summertime. So part of Verizon's report is to understand what the top breach patterns are. And I don't want to oversimplify life, and I don't want to minimize security risk, because there's plenty of risk out there for sure. Many $1 million worth of risk for perhaps each of our clients. But if you could solve or make big inroads on these 3 areas and measure that in North America, you'll have solved 91% of breaches, according to Verizon's data. Now, there's a zillion reports that come across your email screen each month. We delete all of them except for ones we trust, which is basically the Verizon report. Everyone else has an axe to grind or some other commercial interest. These three, by the way, it's outside of today's presentation, are system intrusion, that's where all the ransomware is, social engineering, that's where all the phishing is, and basic web app attacks. This is where there's the simple steps to protect our web applications. Those are the three. That's 91% of the breach patterns are in these three areas. So so metrics can help focus us for sure. Metrics can help increase satisfaction or reduce. We talked about areas where metrics can lead us astray. This happens to be one of the measurement boards at Zappos. When I took a tour of Zappos in Las Vegas many years ago, it's now owned by Amazon, their metrics were really interesting, really constructive rather than destructive. One of the things that they measure is not how much you sell. They actually don't have any commissions in their work at all, nor do we at System Source. So that makes us kind of a strange organization. But Zappos was measuring personal emotional connections. They call them PECs. And you can't read it from where you sit, but this is month-to-date thank you cards sent. These are wow packages sent. These are cookies sent. These are measurements out in the open for their call centers. Different way of running a business, and Zappos, of course, is famous for their customer satisfaction. Those of you who are experienced with phishing and trying to protect your organizations from the dangers of clicking on those emails, you probably have KnowBe4 or some other package that you use. It's actually very interesting, KnowBe4. KnowBe4 is a very interesting company in that their software can be very effective, and it also could be zero effective. It's just how it's set up. Now, this may be true for financial software and ERP software and other software where you have to set it up right to get any benefit at all. So this is our internal data on phishing. This is a 55-person sample for an organization I can vouch for. And it starts in the same place that all of us started, 23%. That means 1 in 4, 1 in 5 people, when faced with a phishing email, will click it and probably click a link inside or attachment, endangering your organization. But when you properly configure KnowBe4 or whatever package you use in terms of frequency and management attention and all the above, AI, setting up so that AI picks the templates, which means it's actually picking a different template for each user based on their position and their previous phishing history. Look what happens to the problem. It starts at 20 some odd percent. It goes into the noise and stays there. In fact, the last 9 weeks of this sample that I can vouch for are at 0. So KnowBe4 or similar package can be very powerful at a very low cost. Let's pretend this thing's $3 a month per user. Can you imagine solving a security issue for $3 a month per user, or any business issue for that matter? So the dollars involved are almost 0, but the power, if it's set up right. If it's not set up right, some good things happen, but it's pretty spotty and sporadic. Now, one of the things we do is to track our security progress in each client. So this is a dashboard, happens to be in Excel, that's about 66 lines long. You're seeing just a little snapshot of it so you can see it remotely. And it talks about two-factor, and it talks about password policy and Orca reports and all kinds of important stuff. And it lets the customer know where they stand versus best practices. There's actually a board version also. I've actually presented this to some of our customers' board of directors who want to see a subset of this, who don't want to see the extensive detail behind it. Remember, there are 66 rows. This is our security quick glance. On the next slide, you'll see our infrastructure quick glance. So we actually have 2 quick glance dashboards. You can also see progress from period to period as lights go from red to yellow to green. We actually have no customers who are completely green in our security dashboard, but for our infrastructure dashboard, we do have clients that are all green. This is the servers across the top. Some of our clients have up to 50 plus servers. So you can imagine keeping this in your head would be impossible. But tracking progress and tracking where we are versus best practices, focusing our attention, even with these dashboards, our quarterly business reviews for our major accounts and even our smaller accounts are 2.5 hours or more. We can have some fun with metrics. Where's the finish line? Some of our customers actually win awards based on their metrics. This one of our customers wrote us a note that says, please celebrate with us. We ended with negligible vulnerabilities, a couple devices, and one of them was pretty excited because they actually got a trophy from the digital defense people who do a lot of these scans in the financial industry. And he actually flew from Dallas to give him the award. And the guy was pretty excited about our client. I think he got a big bonus from the board for it. He didn't tell us that piece of it. Who's performing these metrics? These are important discussions. There's nothing easy about metrics, although they get easier over time. I tell myself, but somebody has to be responsible for this. Somebody has to be allocated the hours to develop these metrics. And remember, we have to do it before we need it. So time to develop metrics is not after we need it, it's before. So assigning responsibilities for this IT task is really an important question. And Gartner lends us these two graphs, one of which you see in front of you, and suggests that we put different IT tasks in the right place on this graph. And the graph indicates what competitive advantage does this IT task give your organization. And on the y-axis, it asks, what business knowledge do I need to know about your organization in order to create that metric or do whatever task related in IT? So let's use some examples. Let's say that I have to develop a dashboard, a security dashboard for your organization. I probably, let's say security dashboard's a bad example. Let's call it an ERP system. I have to install an ERP system, an accounting system, some kind of system in your organization. Could be business intelligence, BI dashboards. That gives you tremendous competitive advantage if done properly. Unfortunately, I would also need to have tremendous intimacy with your environment. I would have to have a lot of knowledge of your organization. That's why it's in the upper right-hand corner. But managing your Office 365 portal or checking your backups each day, well, that doesn't really give you a lot of competitive advantage. Everyone should be doing that. It also doesn't require very much business knowledge. I don't have to be intimate with your organization. Those are down here in the bottom left-hand corner. So then Gartner says, overlay the run, grow, and transform model. That's what they call this model. Run, grow, and transform. Here's run, here's grow, and here's transform. The activities in the upper right-hand corner, remember we talked about creating a business intelligence dashboard for your operations, your manufacturing operations, your warehousing, whatever. Gartner says you own that task. That's yours. In the lower left-hand corner, remember we talked about checking your backups each day or help desk or Office 365 management, managing the over 1,000 settings in your Office 365 portal. Gartner says that's a run activity. You outsource that. So what Gartner's telling us is that not all IT tasks are created equal. And Gartner invites us to put them on this chart so that you can figure out who is responsible for it, who should do this work. There's lots more behind this. We have a few minutes, so I'll take you through a little bit more behind what you're seeing in front of you. It turns out that of the expenses in our IT operations, about 65% end up in the run category. About transform is about 15. Now that's neither here nor there. Who cares? 65, 15, and of course grow is the other, which is 20%. But management is very focused on the upper right-hand corner, the ERP systems, the major systems changes, the warehouse operation systems, HR systems, all of that in the upper right-hand corner is a focus of management. The only unfortunate part of that is that you and I have to manage all the other folks. So most of the folks and the dollars are tied up in run activities, while management is much more focused in the upper right-hand corner. That dichotomy is very difficult to manage through, where the people and all the tools and the expenses and the dollars are tied up in the lower left-hand corner, and management's focused in the upper right-hand corner. That spread is very difficult. It makes our jobs, your jobs and mine, much harder. The other thing that's somewhat interesting about this chart is that these numbers, 65, 20, 15, don't change much from industry to industry. and don't change much over time. You would hope that that 65 number drops over time. And unfortunately, the data doesn't support that. As we get more efficient, some people say the ability of management to convert run dollars into transform dollars is a very key measure of their organization. Your ability to compress this largely by outsourcing it and save the dollars or to transform them into transform money, which helps helps your organization transform itself over time. I should also define as grow activities are the activities needed so that your organization can grow at usual organic growth rates, 5% a year, 6% a year, something like that. Those activities are what Gartner calls grow activities. Transform means when your brick and mortar bank becomes an e-commerce bank. That would be an example of a transform activity. So this is a very interesting graph from lots of points of view. I should close today's presentation, and we'll take questions in a moment, by showing you upcoming webinars. There's 3 more going on in the next 20 days or so. One is a ChatGPT focused and Copilot focused session. A lot of AI being discussed. Large and difficult Wi-Fi environments. That's a repeat session that was very, very well rated. And then, of course, for those that do have servers on premise, simplifying, securing, automating server management is an important HP session. Michelle Robinson, who runs our Learning Center, has put some specials in today's deck, and you'll get a copy of this, of course, with this afternoon with your recap. All kinds of security courses here, and don't forget, we do have quite a business just in KnowBe4, both reselling it and setting it up. So we do understand at a very deep level what's needed to make sure your phishing campaigns are effective, rather than just another use of expense money for subscriptions. We've seen both. Now's the time to ask about it, ask about IT, and of course there'll be a survey at the end of the webinar. We appreciate your response to help us improve. Thanks for attending. I'm going to go ahead and be quiet for a moment while you put questions or chat in the questions or chat boxes. See, Jonathan, you have inserted one, which I'm opening right now. And you're referring to Goodhart's Law, Jonathan, which I'm not familiar with. And I apologize for that. Don't hesitate to chat in or put a question in to tell me more about it. Maybe I know it by another name. If you've used some of these metrics and they've either worked for you or not, don't hesitate to put that in the box also, either chat or questions, so that we can learn from each other. If you have any favorite metrics that I could use, I'm always all ears. And I'll be quiet for a moment while you think of some questions or chat that may be helpful to all of us. Jonathan, you've noted that Goodhart's Law is when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Maybe you wouldn't mind giving me an example, but I'm thinking about what you're saying. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Having a hard time, you stumped me on that one. Not a lot of people stump me on the metrics thought, but you're asking an interesting question. I'm going to have to probably talk to you directly about it, but I'm interested. You are probably pointing out that metrics can lead us 2 directions. One is upward in improving the maturity of our IT or audiovisual operations, which is what we do all day, and the other is destructive, where we destroy our own operations by choosing the wrong metrics. I suspect you're hinting at that. I'll take other thoughts. Jonathan's example says response time to a ticket is a good metric. If that's the metric, then the techs who naturally prioritize a fast response, potentially at the expense of good responses. Totally true. That's a good example, Jonathan. I think we're saying the same thing, is we have to be careful in picking our metrics. Well, I don't know it by Goodhart's law, and I'm going to look it up, of course, right after the session. Choosing the wrong metrics, which is widely done, will lead us astray and give metrics a bad name. Might be mitigating our progress as managers in the organization and removing an important tool. That's the lights on our desks. If the tool is not credible because you're measuring the wrong thing, which is a nice way of saying it, measuring the wrong thing can destroy our IT operations as well as build them. And therefore, we have to choose our metrics and our way of managing very carefully. And that's really why we're talking today. There's a lot of ways to do it wrong in metrics, but they can be so valuable, especially if you measure them ahead of time before you need them. Thanks, Jonathan, for giving me an example so I can relate to it. If there are no other questions, I can turn the 4 minutes of today's session back to you. There was an article in the New York Times many years ago that said the greatest gift to a business person would be canceling a meeting or turning meeting time back to you for something hopefully more important. And thank you for your time today.